morning. Welcome to the Dakota County Board meeting for February 3rd, 2026. I will call us to order and note that there is a quorum present. And if you can, please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very good. Next, we will go to the audience for comments. We have the availability for people to address the county board on an item that is not on the agenda or that might be on the consent agenda. And we did have a number of people sign up to provide verbal comments. Those comments are limited to 5 minutes, and I will just call off names in order. When you come up, please be sure to identify yourself for the record and let us know what community you live in. So first up is Amy Schwartz. Welcome.
Thank you. Morning, I'm Amy Schwartz. I live in Burnsville, Minnesota, here in Dakota County. As the Board of Commissioners of Dakota County, you're charged with protecting the residents of this county. But I feel like you've fallen asleep at the switch. You've allowed ICE to use Dakota County property to stage attacks against Dakota County residents. ICE is regularly stationed at service center parking lots. They've harmed residents' ability to access county services. ICE has followed Dakota County employees home, targeting them, making it harder for them to do the jobs and services they perform for Dakota County. Obviously, this is in addition to detaining and terrorizing residents based on the color of their skin. I have seen that this board has offered to put forth a letter. That letter has not even moved forward, and honestly, a weak-kneed letter is not enough. We'd like the Board of Commissioners to protect the residents of this community and to pass an ordinance that prohibits ICE from staging on county-owned or county-controlled property. Such an ordinance is within the county's authority and control, and it's clearly the right thing to do from a public perspective and a moral perspective. But it's right from a political perspective as well. For those of you who have stood in the way of this progress, we know who you are and we are watching you. Please do the right thing because our memories on this will be very long. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Kelly Moffitt. Welcome to the board.
Good morning. My name is Kelly Moffitt. I'm a resident of Eagan. Lived in Eagan for 10 years. I have 3 sons who all go to public schools in District 196. Happy to be a resident of Dakota County. But I'm here today, like my friend Ms. Schwartz, who just spoke, to urge the commission to take an affirmative stance on what is happening in our community. I want to acknowledge as I stand here today that I feel free to walk into this building, to come here and to address you, and there are thousands and thousands of people in our community who do not share that same feeling. There are many people who I assume would want to be here today to stand up and to advocate for themselves, advocate for their neighbors, but cannot do that because they feel afraid to leave their homes. And not only that, they probably feel afraid to come to a government building, seeing what they've seen. When we've seen in the community ICE agents staging at government facilities, that makes it hard for our citizens to come and participate in our community in the way we all deserve to participate. I also will say, what I have seen in the last few weeks from a mutual aid perspective in our community is nothing short of astonishing. I've participated in some volunteer organizations, and the work I've seen happening and the way I have seen people standing up for our neighbors in our community has been amazing. But what we need from you is your support. You are in a unique position to stand up for our constituents, our neighbors, our immigrants, everyone who needs our support, and to take a stand and to say we're not going to use government resources, property to support this, and we're going to protect our neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schwartz. Next, we have Jeff Timmerman.
Howdy, folks.
Welcome
Madam
to the
Chair.
board.
Our federal system in this country has worked pretty darn well over the past 250 years. When states and municipalities go too far, the federal government pushes back. And when the federal government goes too far, states and municipalities push back. Anyone who's paying attention right now knows that this system is in grave jeopardy. And it's within this context that I express my deep disappointment with Dakota County's response to Operation Metro Surge. In a word, the response is pathetic. It reads like what it is, a politically motivated cop-out. At a time when the state and other local government units have stood up for our citizens, you have effectively done nothing. I work for Keith Ellison. I'm not here today on his behalf. I'm not here today in my professional capacity. I'm here today only to express my personal opinions. These are solely my words and beliefs. To say that the Attorney General's office has been burdened by Operation Metro Surge is a gross understatement. We faced unprecedented burdens for more than a year now. In fact, we had to hire 4 special term attorneys whose job duty and position title is rule of law. Let that sink in. Their sole responsibility is to ensure that the federal government is following the rule of law. Dakota County has faced burdens too. We, in my office, have fought like hell to stand up for and protect Minnesotans, and we'll keep fighting. Just like we fought to ensure that all Minnesotans have food, shelter, and the basic necessities to live with dignity. And I ask, what have you done? Instead of telling DHS how Operation Metro Surge is affecting Dakota County residents, you chose to focus on how Operation Metro Surge is affecting Dakota County operations. 30% of our neighbors here in Dakota County are people of color, and about 10% of our neighbors are Latino. How do you think your inaction has impacted these neighbors, many of whom are too afraid to leave their homes, even to get groceries, or seek needed medical care? I mean, I'm a white dude standing here complaining to you today. I don't have lived experience. I can only speak from what I've seen spending my free time volunteering to help people in need. And I'll tell you, on an average Saturday, where I volunteer, we serve in excess of 10,000 people in the metro area. 10,000 people who are too afraid to leave their homes, whose windows are covered with plastic so that you can't see in, many of whom, in fact, most of whom are here legally. I was optimistic after listening to the January 27th special board meeting that we'd see an agenda item today. Commissioner Heyman Rowland, you explicitly requested one. Where is it? To Commissioner Heyman Rowland, to Commissioner Halverson, to Commissioner Atkins, I urge you to press forward with a resolution, even if it's doomed to fail. Let the voters see who is committed to protecting all Dakota County residents. To the rest of you, your efforts to delay a meaningful discussion of a full-throated response to Operation Metro Surge has not been lost on us and will not be forgotten. First at the January 20th GGP meeting, and again at the January 27th special board meeting. You were not elected to be politicians, but it's clear to me that your personal politics are what's preventing progress here, rather than what's best for the most vulnerable of your constituents. I used to work here. To the people I worked with are kind human beings who work hard each day to serve Dakota County residents. You used to have a slogan here. It's be more. It's emblazoned on posters that hang throughout county buildings. It's on your employment applications. And staff are constantly reminded of the need to be more. And I consistently witness staff do just that. It's time for you to be more. More is what's required in this moment of history. Anything less is acquiescing to harm that in many cases cannot be undone. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Jacob Borealis. Welcome to the board.
Thank you for letting me speak again. Jacob Borealis, I live in Lakeville. Over the past 2 weeks, I have called each of you, spoken with some of you, sent messages to all of you, and have had absolutely no response from Commissioner Workman or Commissioner Slavic. I may not be your constituents, but I am in the county that you lead and represent. Commissioners Holberg, Halverson, Heyman Rowland, Drosty, and Atkins, thank you so much for your patience and your candor during our conversations. I know we don't agree on things, but that's how we arrive at a solution that works for everyone. I believe that our community is desperately looking for effective and professional law enforcement, and nothing our local or state community or even national community has been observing from the Department of Homeland Security is effective, professional, or lawful. And I know I'm not the only one with these opinions. A lot of the information I've sent you has demonstrated that district judges around the country have arrived at the same conclusion. Ostensibly, the Department of Homeland Security claims to execute immigration enforcement. But in doing so, they are violating the rights affirmed, not granted, but affirmed by the 5th and 14th Amendments. And in doing so, they are then violating the rights affirmed by the 1st, 2nd, 4th, 6th, and 8th Amendments for everyone else that is not explicitly a target of their immigration enforcement. If you aren't absolutely horrified by the hunting of our neighbors by violent predators, you should be embarrassed and ashamed at how distant and out of touch you are with the very communities you claim to represent. We, the community, not elected officials, not law enforcement officers, civilians, are out there every day with nothing but whistles and cameras, because that's all we have. The federal government has not told the truth. They are not a serious administration. They are lying at every opportunity to promote their agenda. So we need to witness and observe. I came here today originally to encourage you to prohibit the Department of Homeland Security from executing any immigration enforcement from county properties. I thought that would be a reasonable compromise. And in our conversations, what you said made sense. Something like that would not be practical or effective unless it was in collaboration and support of our local law enforcement. We would need the chief of police, we would need the sheriff to figure out how to enforce this. And yes, some of it may not be practical. We can't completely forbid them. But just because it's impractical doesn't mean we don't do it. We're not going to enforce speed limits. That doesn't mean we get rid of them. But I no longer think that is even possible, because Sheriff Lico at the town hall, he said that, and the other chiefs of police, call 911. If you feel scared, call 911. That's what local law enforcement is supposed to do. They are supposed to help. I have something from the Lakeville Police Department, a Freedom of Information request for an event that occurred on the 29th at 9:30 in the morning. They did it. Everyone I've been speaking to in rapid response groups has been very resistant because they don't trust law enforcement anymore. But they did. They called 911 to ask for help. 3 squad cars pulled up. 3 sworn peace officers of Minnesota showed up and did nothing. They were approached by peaceful observers saying, please can you help? Please can you assist? They were approached by the manager of the facility to say, please can you help? Please can you assist? They did nothing. They left. They did not even speak to these masked, heavily armed, unidentified individuals. And it is not obstruction. Sheriff Lico said they would not obstruct. That makes sense. But it is not obstruction to say, hey, are you who you claim to be? Or are you another Vance Bolter copycat? Hey, do you actually have a judicial warrant that gives you statutory authority to do this? Because without a judicial warrant, what they're doing has no more legal weight than an HR policy. An administrative warrant does not have any legal weight to do anything. To confirm those two things is not obstruction. That's all we're
I just
asking.
want to make sure that you know you're running up on time, so.
Thank you so much.
Yes, I know you have a lot to say, so.
I don't know what the answer is anymore. I really want to work with local law enforcement to do something. I no longer believe we can even trust local law enforcement because this is an example of what I and the rest of the community have been saying for a year now. This is not just the past few months. People have been abducted from their immigration hearings after they lawfully entered the country and followed the rules.
You've had your 5 minutes, and so if you want to just go ahead and wrap up.
Please help us. I don't know what to do anymore. I thought I did, but it requires trust in our institutions, and we don't have that anymore.
Thank you very much. That is everybody that is on the list. Is there anybody here who wishes to address the board? Give it a minute. Not seeing anyone else come up. Appreciate everybody who took the time to come out this morning and address the board. Typically, when we hear from constituents, we will ask for follow-up to happen, and so you guys have left your contact information, and you may be hearing from either your commissioner and or staff with regard to any inquiries that you made. So you can look forward to that as kind of a next step for you. And is there anything else in terms of typically, we don't comment as a board, but I do want to be sure that people have the time to respond if need be. And I'm not hearing anything from the board. All right. We did not put together an agenda with any kind of big time constraints because the intention really was to give time to the public today. And so today is definitely your time, and there's always time at every public meeting other than special meetings to address the board. And so these are public meetings, and we commit to doing everything in public for you. So with that, members, we can move on to our consent agenda. And we will look for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Madam Chair, I'd like to approve the agenda first.
Oh, I'm sorry. We can approve the agenda. Sorry, I skipped
That's okay.
by that one.
That's okay. There's a lot of emotion.
We have a motion,
Yes.
and it's seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. We have our agenda. Next up, we can talk about the consent agenda. Is there any wishes to change or modify or approve the agenda?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Slavic.
under the minutes of the special meeting, we have a constituent whose name and location is incorrect.
Okay.
I think we have a guy, Mike Legvold, is actually Mark Legvold
Okay.
of Greenvale.
Okay.
So I'll pass that on to our clerk so that change can be made. And if, other than that, I'm happy to move the consent agenda with that amended change.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion to the motion? Hearing none, we can take the roll on the consent agenda.
Commissioner Workman?
Yes.
Commissioner Atkins?
Yes.
Commissioner Holberg?
Yes.
Commissioner Halverson?
Yes.
Commissioner Drosty?
Yes.
Commissioner Hayman-Roland?
Yes.
Commissioner Slavic?
Yes.
Very good. And next up, we will, without a regular agenda, we can move to interagency reports, starting with AMC.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will just report out that the board asked for a clear, consistent talking points for our HHS modernization, and staff are working on a matrix of the HHS programs that are impacted by federal funding reductions or freezes, and want all of our feedback. So that, and then Commissioner Slavic.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Madam Chair, thank you. A couple things of note. We did have our board meeting. That was kind of the point that Commissioner Hayman-Roland shared with that. It was our first time gathering of the year with the new board members, including Commissioner Hayman-Roland. Also of note on that the executive committee did have a meeting with the governor prior to our board meeting on that Friday. And it was a very positive one, unlike our previous years meeting with the governor when it was right after his budget proposal. A lot of positive momentum towards the number one priority of changing the systems modernization with that. So I think it was very positive, and I think you probably will bring up the fact that tomorrow the governor will be in Dakota County to do that. So he's actually very much looking forward to that as well. So it was a positive meeting.
Thank you very much. Anything else with regard to AMC? Hearing nothing. Metropolitan Emergency Services Board.
Executive Board got canceled this month, so the next meeting is March 11th.
Great. Anything to add? Hearing nothing. Minnesota Intercounty Association. We had our annual legislative conference in Sherburne County, and it was a fantastic day. It was well attended. The information that was presented was really, really valuable, I would say. We worked on our major agenda items, including modernization, as well as working on other budget issues. And I can't say enough about what a good conference it was. So anything to follow up, Commissioner Drosty? Your mic.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with you. The one other key item is the act that must be implemented 2027. There's still a lot of concerns across all counties on the cost and even what it means that we have to do. So having several local legislators there as at the end of the meeting helped, but I could also tell from their perspective they don't really understand it either because their comments were so brief when they were asked questions on cost and implementation. But otherwise, great conference. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner Drosty. Metropolitan Mosquito Control Board, Commissioner Workman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It was not a real long meeting. We had 2 closed sessions. They're negotiating union contracts, and then the executive director's performance evaluation. One thing that might be of interest is, the Plymouth facility that they have there is in real rough shape. I mean, when half the building falls off, there's a problem. So they've hired a realtor to look at, what would it cost to redo the building? Is it in a great area? Not really. And what they're finding out is they may have to go out further because they need the airspace to land a helicopter and, to pick up pellets and things. So when you're in the Twin Cities metro area, you're kind of limited because the buildings are getting taller. So they're going to be looking further out, still within the district, but it's getting tougher because you have to land a helicopter there. So, and that's, more to come. Yes, it is.
Thank you. National Association of Counties. Hearing nothing. We do have our NACO conference coming up February 21st.
I'll say, quick, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Slavic.
Yeah, so I know, just to give a quick heads up, the Association of Minnesota Counties is having an emergency executive meeting today related to a federal issue related to some HHS funding and some priorities and coming up that there's kind of a national call to action. So the association is looking to, I would guess, approve that recommendation and sign off on behalf of all 87 counties. Not a controversial thing, just to make sure that things don't go haywire related to human services funding.
Thank you, Commissioner Slavic. The Transportation Advisory Board, Commissioner Holberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we had our vote on the draft regional solicitation and active transportation, and I failed miserably. Well, maybe not miserably. The votes we're like 14 to 10, 13 to 9. We took roll call votes on every vote. The counties, other than Ramsey, all stood with. And it wasn't 10% across the board. It was actually the day after we had our work session on this issue. The technical committee put forward a plan that had a 15% funding, so rather than the 10% across the board, we pivoted and took what the technical team's recommendation was, as that seemed, had maybe a better chance, but it still failed. Basically, for the most part, those that supported the position that Dakota County took were elected officials. MnDOT also joined us in those votes, and virtually everybody else that voted against our position were appointed individuals by the Met Council. We had 3 Dakota County members absent that day, so had they been there, I believe at least 2 of them would have joined us, and we would have a bit stronger. But obviously the tab's very divided, so now it was released for public comment, so we'll have to rely on our staff to kind of put together a letter. But I think it doesn't bode well for a consensus position moving through this process, because there's pretty strong feelings on both sides of it. So that's my update. Any questions?
Thank you, I guess.
Vermilion River Watershed Joint Powers Board, Commissioner Slavic.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We met as the first time of the year last week. Proud to announce that I was appointed back as chair of the Vermilion. So I'm back at it again. It's good to be there. Commissioner Heyman Rowland is also on as representing Dakota County this year.
Vice Chair.
As Vice Chair, yes, thank you. Couple things that we did do. We approved some new members to the Community Advisory Committee, formerly known as our Planning Commission, but then the big action that has been about 2 years in the making was we had our public hearing on the watershed management plan, something that watersheds in the metro must do every 10 years. And we had the public hearing. We now have released the draft for the final 90-day review, and assuming that there is no changes to that, we've approved contingent on the Board of Soil and Water. So this will be our pathway for the next 10 years once it is approved by the statewide Board of Soil and Water. So great job. Anything else, Commissioner Rowland?
Commissioner
Madam Chair, I would
Heyman-Rowland.
add, the 2 people that we appointed to the advisory board have exceptional resumes. Their experience, their education, and we're very fortunate. We would have had to pay a lot of money for these people, and they are on our advisory board, so grateful to them.
Good. Thank you so much. And the Workforce Development Board.
Thank you.
Commissioner Heyman-Rowland.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Construct Tomorrow event will be taking place in Scott County on February the 10th, so that's coming up. The Teen Fair, I didn't know whether I was going to share this or not, but I think I am, given the strong sentiment of the people who spoke this morning. We need to assure for the Teen Job Fair on April 11th if that is going to be the date and if that is going to be the place, because we need to assure that the parents and the teenagers that are coming to the event will have a safe and secure place to be able to do that, and it directly relates to the enforcement actions. So if you have some ideas, I'd like you to get your brains working on it, and I would definitely bring those back to the committee that's working on that. And then, Jessica, do you think we can do this? This is a very simplified way of understanding unemployment. And I thought it was last board meeting we were going to share it, and it was difficult to pull it up. So let's hope we can do it today and Take it away, Jessica.
Have you ever wondered how the unemployment rate you hear about on the news is calculated? Each month, we talk to people across the country, asking questions about what they did last week. Based on their responses, we divide people into one of three categories: employed, unemployed, and not in the labor force. Let's use this hive and these bees as an example. If you have a job, you are employed. If you do not have a job, are currently looking for and available to take a job, you are unemployed. Employed and unemployed make up what's called the labor force. Everyone else falls into our third category, not in the labor force. Some examples are if you are retired, a student, or taking care of your family. The vast majority of people who are not in the labor force say that they do not want a job. To calculate the unemployment rate, you add the employed and the unemployed to get the labor force. Then you divide the number of unemployed by the labor force. So, the unemployment rate is the unemployed divided by the labor force. To learn more, check out bls.gov/CPS.
And BLS, Madam Chair, is the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So I know that was very simple, but sometimes people include everyone into the unemployment, and everyone is not included. It's the people who are intentionally wanting to seek a job or who are employed. So, and that concludes my report.
Thank you so much. I'm glad your AV equipment worked.
Yes, I'm glad it did too.
We always hold our breath with AV
We do.
equipment. Before we move on to the county manager's report, I do have a couple of commissioner updates. I don't update you guys every week on MELSA, but we did have our organizing board meeting last month, and I was able to pass the gavel as president after a year and a half. And we had a board member rejoin the board after being gone for a couple of years, and that board member was frankly surprised at all we got accomplished. And so I thought you guys might be interested to know.
Yeah.
In the last year, the MELSA, the Metropolitan Library Service Administration, that is the 7 Metro County library systems as well as the City of St. Paul, we sit as a board of trustees, and we have an advisory board of our library directors. In that year, we hired a new executive director. We have replaced one 30-year employee and with somebody who is a communications expert who is just raring to go. We rewrote a number of job descriptions, and want to thank Dakota County for assisting with some job grading as well. So as we've been turning over jobs, we've been rewriting job descriptions in order to fit a more modern library system. We created a strategic plan that was just approved last month. We rewrote our bylaws. We created a collaborative project. So part of MELSA is passed through. I would say the majority of MELSA is passed through. So the federal government provides money to states, and the states distribute it to library systems for funding. There are legal restrictions on how those monies can be used, and they have to be used for the good of all library systems. And so our library directors created a collaborative effort focused on adult literacy. So libraries get to use this funding, and the goal is to leverage the dollars that we have by providing partnerships, but also making sure that individual library systems can be responsive to their communities. I'm really excited to see this take flight. And then super exciting stuff, we rewrote our HR policies, which doesn't sound like the most exciting thing, but it had been decades. And so I handed over the gavel and took a nap. So I just wanted you guys to know MELSA is doing a lot to leverage the dollars that we have and get more dollars. We also rewrote our funding formula so that the dollars are distributed to local libraries in a more equitable manner. That's MELSA for the last year and a half. The other thing I wanted to update you all on is since we sent our letter, and if anybody else has updates, please let me know, but since we sent the letter about the impacts of ICE on county operations and our communities, I did have conversations with both the staff from Member of Congress's office and the governor's office as well, which I thought were really fruitful discussions. It made me really glad that we sent the letter, and I've heard from other counties since that have kind of followed Dakota County's lead and either are in the process of discussing it or communicating to the federal government in writing about the impacts of ICE. So we didn't move the mountain, but we definitely got to tell the county story and the impacts at the local level. So that is my report. Anything else?
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Heyman Rowland.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to report out that we too at MVTA had our organizational meeting, and I was elected vice chair, which means I will hold that office for 2 years and then become chair. So
good to hear. Thank you so much. Yeah. Anything else from the commissioners? Hearing nothing, we can move to our county manager. And Heidi, I know you've got some updates for us.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, thank you. I'd like to talk today about the county's operations and preparedness around the Operation Metro Surge. And I have one of the assistant managers, Marty Fishbach, who's going to pull up a slide here, so I just invite her to come up while I'm giving some introductory comments. We do continue to operate through an incident command structure within operations. It's similar to the ways that counties worked through the many issues of COVID. That's because we are seeing a lot of effects on our workforce. We have had workers stopped by ICE in the course of their work. There's a lot of fear and stress affecting our workforce. And so we're doing many things to try to combat that fear, make sure people have what they need to continue their jobs. We also are continuing to see some effects on contracted work, so potential slowdown as contractors perhaps don't have all of the staff that they need to do the work that they are contracted for, mostly through facilities. We also, as we've mentioned before to you, are waiting to see whether contractors that we have coming for Billsby, the turbine replacement at Billsby, they're international contractors, and we're waiting to see whether this will have an effect on those contractors coming, a slowdown that may affect when we can actually start up those turbines. We, of course, we're responding to community needs on a variety of fronts. So first I would say there are some of our services that we have modified or we continue to modify to allow more allow more work to happen electronically that might otherwise happen in person. Point particularly to corrections, where we have perhaps some people afraid to come out of their homes, and so we are doing our best to try to respond to their needs in modified ways. We're also keeping a keen eye watching and preparing for elections. You know that this is a local responsibility in Minnesota. It's the counties and the cities that really run elections. We have an excellent elections office, and it's our goal to have free and fair elections. We believe we're going to achieve that, but we don't know yet whether or how the surge may affect elections. We're doing everything we can to be prepared, and I believe having incident command structure in place is going to help us be able to respond to anything that may come up. Of course, the biggest part of our response is to our community members is through our community services division, where we are seeing an increase in need for food support, for housing, and a real what's shaping up to be a rent crisis. And so I've asked Marty to talk a little bit more specifically about this, and I believe she's got the slide pulled up, so I'm going to turn over to Marty.
All right, thank you. Thank you, County Manager Welsh and Dr. Welsh and Madam Chair and Commissioners. As you know, we are seeing, we know that people in Dakota County have been unable to go to work and have been, family members have been detained, and that has also impacted family income. We are seeing a significant increase in emergency rental assistance for February and anticipate that will continue for March. While the total need is unknown, the housing team has been reaching out to apartment managers and manufactured home complexes. And just a couple examples, in one large apartment building, 50 households out of the 200 units stated they were uncertain how they were going to pay for February rent. In another building of 170 units, just shy of 50 people signed up for additional services. We've actually had to slow down our individual outreach and trying to target things where we can have the most effect with the less staff, because we just don't have the capacity to meet all the outreach. Some of the impacts, of course, of a housing crisis would be unsustainable need for emergency assistance, financial losses for property owners, a strain on the court system as evictions go through, and we're already seeing an evidence of this with an uptick in applications. So the slide that you can see is SNAP and cash applications. These are daily totals. So in the beginning, that's like November, December, it's the first half of the slide, and now we're looking, that is January moving into February. So those are what our applications are looking like. We're responding in the following ways. We're continuing to collect information from apartment managers and partners. We're increasing rental assistance output where we can. Now we're trying to do this in a way that we don't exhaust all of the resources at once, but we are trying to figure out like where can we shift money so we can do more emergency assistance. We are participating in convenings of community partners to explore more ways that we can prevent mass evictions. So as an example, there was an event last Thursday. It was hosted by Mount Calvary in Eagan. And it was the Family Housing Fund in Dakota County hosted this meeting. Nearly 50 people attended the meeting. They were from county and state government, faith communities, nonprofits, schools, and community aid organizations. The attendees discussed the need they're seeing in their communities and the resources and how to best triage and navigate this. Next steps will evolve as we figure out how best to use the resources that we have and how to organize these things, how to coordinate. We will continue to be at the table for ongoing discussion and planning, but that's what we're seeing in this housing space right now.
Commissioner, I would just be open to any questions that you may have. Yes.
My mic wasn't on.
Oh.
So, Madam Chair, we are happy to answer any questions you may have.
Very good. Questions, board members?
I have one very
Commissioner Atkins.
particular one. Marty, could you repeat the numbers? And you said there were 15, the numbers of individuals at one building was 15 out of 200?
50 out of 200.
50.
So in one building. And the other that was out of a 200-unit building. Another building of 170 units was just shy of 50 people that weren't saying, they actually signed up for services. So the apartment building was trying to proactively figure out like how people were doing, and so people signed up to get more information. So that's not how they would pay rent, but signing up for services is the other building.
So I've heard on the other side of things from the building owners they're not panicking quite yet, but they're rapidly approaching. And do you have a sense of where the two buildings in particular, where were they located?
Marty.
Not specific addresses, but can we talk about communities that they're located in?
One was in Burnsville.
Do we know where the other one was?
We don't know the other one.
As the folks, as you might imagine, I represent Invergrove, South St. Paul, West St. Paul, but it's been there as well as an individual owns buildings in Invergrove, West St. Paul, and Burnsville. And he called me about 10 days ago saying he was starting to get the sense that the rents weren't going to get paid. So he was wondering if I just wanted to make sure that I gave him accurate information. How long you said we want to dole out, or something, paraphrasing, we don't want to run out of benefits. Give me a sense of what that means and how long we can go before we do run out, and what happens if we do run out or when we run out.
Right. We are still doing that analysis. So some things that we are doing is we had some carryover from last year that we're going to be using right away. And then there's some other pieces that we're doing. And I don't know, Dana, do you have more information about how we're keeping track of emergency assistance?
Chair
Hi, welcome
Halverson
to the meeting.
and commissioners. With emergency assistance, the challenge with emergency assistance is it kind of has to be the backstop because of the current policies in place. We have some that are in our control, as in me and Tiffany Miller, and making decisions about our policy, like expediting interviews for folks who are already on and receiving SNAP, so we're familiar with their cases. You know, making it so that people can have their verifications in over 30 days rather than 10. You know, things like that that we can do to help speed up the process. There's other things that we will likely come to this board, the request for board action that sets emergency assistance policy. One of the critical aspects is emergency assistance is meant to resolve the emergency, right? If someone can't afford the rent, we don't want to pay now and have them face eviction next month. Well, with the uncertainty of how long this may go on, we may need to rethink what resolve the emergency means and how do we partner with others like mutual aid organizations, churches, nonprofits to braid funding for folks so emergency assistance can be part of the solution, but not necessarily all the solution. With emergency general assistance, as you're aware, that is a state program with a consolidated grant that's set for the year, and it's on the state fiscal year. We're already almost out of that. We are likely to run out in March, regardless of this, and that is for households without children. And in this particular instance, there are very few non-citizens who are eligible for that per state policy anyways, and so that is kind of a program that's not necessarily going to be helpful in this instance, whereas emergency assistance, which is for families, has a little bit broader citizenship requirements and legal status requirements. But they're typically in a year, we use up in a normal year, I think we're around like $1.5 million of the TANF block grant for that annually, and we use that in a little bit more every year under normal circumstances. So we're being very careful to think about where does emergency assistance fit in vis-a-vis other sources of rental assistance so that we don't, at the end of the year, folks who are also needing that for all the normal reasons that people need rent assistance aren't left with nothing. And so just being really careful as we think about what we can use out of that pot versus others.
Additional questions?
Yeah, Madam
Were you done?
I've got one
It's
additional
just-
question.
let's-
but
It's
I don't-
following up on that.
Yeah,
so
go
we
ahead.
can
We're
pass
going to
it
let
back.
him finish, and then we'll,
Oh.
go ahead,
No,
Commissioner.
mine's a separate topic
it's
relative to
a
the,
separate
to the,
topic. Okay.
Mine's following up on that.
Commissioner
So-
Hayman-Rollins.
So I think about my experience historically, our experience as a board, and what we went through with the pandemic. And to understand where we are today when the pandemic first began, how does where we are today compare to that? And will we need to start doing a dashboard so that we're on top of what's happening so that we can understand these financial implications for the county? And where is the federal responsibility here? And I don't know if you can even answer that question, but that's something that I think about.
Madam Chair, if I could just respond to
Chair
that.
Welch.
This is part of why we have incident command set up. Incident command does report out of the what is happening, what are the effects on the organization. That happens weekly. It is a lot of it's focused operationally as opposed to, so things like how many trainings did we do, how many questions did we get from staff, what questions, what did we decide about how to indicate whether space is private or not private, all kinds of questions like that. But we are gathering that piece there. We're also monitoring as part of incident command, what else is coming in, what else do we see. So that's where I would see, that's how I would see being able to answer some of those needs.
So Commissioner Hayman-Rowland.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Back to the question about the comparison, just because that's my experience, and to understand that, and I suppose, you know, the rest of the board is experience as well. How does it compare? Are we ramping up as quickly, or is it? Can you even give that information to me?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Hayman-Rowland, I don't think we know the answer to that. I would say that this is a little quicker, and we don't really know what the end, like when things will settle back down.
We didn't know it then
and
either.
so, yes, that's true. This seems like it's a little quicker pace, but we haven't really made that comparison. We do have, to the point of Dr. Welsh, in the incident command structure, there is a data component, and so we'll make sure that a lot of this information is tracked.
Okay, so and we, Madam Chair, and we'll be receiving that information?
Madam Chair, Commissioners, we can certainly share that information with you. It's a weekly set of reports.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Drosty.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and this for our manager. Housing being very complex, and Dakota County, we have a Dakota County CDA, Community Development Agency. Could you speak to, let me back up, I think we house approximately just over 3,000 housing units, 1,600 senior workforce housing, et cetera. So regarding this whole issue, I'm assuming on that side, it's subsidized housing funded annually, generally, from HUD, et cetera. It wouldn't be impacting the housing element that CDA manages?
Madam Chair, Commissioners, so I am less of an expert in the CDA, but I will give you my best try at an answer. It doesn't affect the funding that is coming from the federal government right now. However, if you had somebody in that housing that was afraid to leave their apartment for reasons related to the Metro Operations Cert, and they then didn't have income, it could affect a person in the same way that it would affect a person who's in a private apartment. So that answers it.
Okay. So let's see. Commissioner Drosty? Okay. Sounds good. Commissioner Atkins?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I've asked the CDA folks to talk about these same issues. Are they experiencing any issues with rent? There's different sources that people that live in our housing have, but many of them are working, or they were working when they weren't afraid to leave their home. So we're looking at that. We don't have at least 10 days ago, they didn't have a sense of what the impacts were. So, but with time, we'll develop that. My question was just very specific to the comment that Mr. Borealis and others raised relative to the use of our parking lots by ICE officials or ICE agents. Specific, the Northern Service Center. And after I visited with you, I talked to a couple of friends, both American citizens, both of Latino origin. I said, if ICE was in the parking lot at Northern Service Center and you had to go there for something, would you go? And both have been pulled off and demanded of information about their heritage. And both of them, one said no, the other one said hell no. So, the question is, do you have any sense of whether or not that's an issue for and if it is an issue for people wanting to go to the Northern Service Center, obviously there's a host of services that are located there. Are there alternative ways for them to seek those, or have you figured out alternative ways for them to seek those services in case they're afraid to go to a government building, specifically a government building where ICE might be mobilizing their efforts?
Madam Chair, let me jump in first.
Okay.
I just want to note that we are unaware of ICE being in the Northern Service Center parking lot at all.
I know they were at Western, right?
They have been at Western when they were there for court. They are frequently here in Hastings because they interact with court. But we're unaware of them being on Northern Service Center property at this point. So I just wanted to start with that piece. And then the question of whether people are afraid. I mean, it stands to reason that they're afraid to go to the grocery store, they're afraid to come out for anything. And so I think it does stand to reason that that may be the case. But I don't know that staff can really say too much more about how the clients are feeling. We are doing everything we can to make other means available where that is possible, to meet people in the field, to do things electronically where we can. So we're doing that wherever we can. It's not possible with every single service that we have, but we are trying to do that as much as possible. And then I would turn it to
Dr.
Marty.
Welsh, Madam Chair, if I might, I zero in on the Northern Service Center because it's a community
Of
that
course.
I represent.
Of course.
But Western Service Center, I know they've been mobilized there. We've obviously got a library and library services and various other services that are there.
Yes.
I don't really know what they've, other than visiting the jail, I didn't know if they were mobilizing here at the Administrative Services Center in Hastings.
Correct.
But I'd be open to answers about all of those
Madam Chair,
all of those
Commissioners,
properties.
don't forget that we do deliver public health and WIC in particular from the Western Service Center. There's also all of the child protection staff that are at the Western facility. So there are services that, roughly speaking, similar groups of clients would be visiting the Western services for, as well as the Northern. You're right in your assessment that it's different here in Hastings. We don't have the same set of services here in Hastings. I think that people may stands to reason that they would be, if they're coming to see WIC, for example, they in Western Services Center, they may have fear of ICE in the parking lot.
Commissioner Atkins, nothing else? So,
Madam Chair, before you do that, because I'm still at the Western Services Center, can I?
Commissioner Heeman.
Okay. All right. That's the same issue, the concern for the teen event that's going to be happening in April. And so are you aware of any possibilities of how staff are preparing for that to make sure that the teens and their parents are going to be safe? Heidi.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, I don't know that we have anything special that we can do differently than what we do already in terms of having security at Western Services Center. We do have security person there. The courts are there, and so there are reasons that ICE need to be able to access that building. We are certainly open to other possibilities if that event needs to move to another location. There are, and you and I have had a couple emails about other possible places that they might consider. I think that's about what I can say at this point.
Okay. Madam Chair, just kind of follow
Commissioner
up.
Heeman-Roland.
On a daily basis, I'm getting several emails from people about Western Services Center and their concern about the staging that is there, and it is a serious concern. And my druthers would be that Department of Homeland Security would function as it did professionally with our police department, our sheriff's department, and if we could go back to that, that would be back and forward, to the best practices into the future. That would be an important solution, I think, for us for the future, because it's causing such a great ripple effect for us. We want people to be able to, teenagers to go to these events so they can learn about the jobs, so that we can help our employers. This is causing a real ripple, a negative ripple in this. So my hope is that we are going to learn from this, and collectively we come up with some solutions that are going to be effective so that our people are safe and can continue to have Dakota County be 90% is what the safety response was, that we could go back up to that. So I really appreciate everything that staff are doing to help people, and the solutions that are maybe mobile or virtual solutions to help people to be able to get this information and their services.
My question has to do with, I'm going to loop back on housing, because we did have a consent agenda item today where we are applying for some federal grant money, and understanding that we are facing what feels to me like we are on a road for a crisis, not unlike what we experienced back in 2001 with the pandemic. This to me feels like a very good opportunity, and at the same time, whenever I see anything federal with regard to grants right now, two things pop into my head. One is, because they are targeting Minnesota, does Minnesota or Dakota County have a disadvantage in this grant process? Are we going to be targeted in some way, shape, or form? You may not know the answer to that question, but I think it's important that I have concerns about punitive action taken against us. And then the other thing, how might this help us as we think about the mutual aid that's happening in our communities, and how might these grant fundings support us in creating, I think we have to create a crisis plan. I know that we're on track for that, and there's a lot of work that has to happen with regard to that, but how might what we approve today be helpful? Marty, whoever wants to answer, sorry.
Madam Chair, so you're still speaking specifically to the grant, The grant application that we approved today. I don't think we know anything that is imminent. I mean, I will say that in the next presentation at GGP, we're going to be giving an update on the strategic board priorities. And one of the areas there that's in a court case right now is stopping child care assistance program. So we know that it happens, that we've had those things. Things are in court right now, so we haven't seen it happen, but we are, preparing the best we can, knowing that these things are possible. And we don't have a lot of resources from just our perspective. We do have LAHA and SAHA, which maybe is a resource in the housing space. In the childcare space, we don't really have that same kind of flexibility. And I think to your point, we really saw as part of the convening that happened last Thursday, the community is looking, my understanding, I was not at the event, actually Dana was at the event, but my understanding is they really were compartmentalizing, like who can help who. Yes. So it was really a coming together of not just resources, but also, as Dana mentioned, if there was somebody that was undocumented, it wouldn't be anything we would be able to help with. The government programs, you're not eligible, and another program might pick something like that up. So those are some of the coordination we're seeing with the community.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, I would just add as context, the grant that you approved on the consent agenda, the ability to apply for the grant that was on the consent agenda. That's a regular grant that we apply for every year. It's something that's very important for our existing housing programs. It's kind of bread and butter in what we do in the housing program. I'm looking at Madeline, who's given us thumbs up too. And so I don't know, it's not enough money, or it's not going to help a crisis, I guess, is kind of, it's not going to help a new crisis, an additional, more people or a big surge. It's not going to, I don't want you to I want you to understand that it's our regular work is what comes through, the way we use that money that comes through that grant annually. That's how we use that money.
Thank you for clarifying that. I think it's important to note that we do have a lot of dollars that flow through our system. I will say that when it comes to housing and homelessness, we made some decisions last year in our budget that were really challenging because it's not mandated services, and we lost some staff in that area, and we are looking at another potential crisis. I will ask for updates with regard to community, two things. One is I will ask that we get, and I think you alluded to this, Heidi, that we get a report out on Incident Command, GGP, weekly. I think that we need to know where things are developing and crises are developing so that we can be responsive in our communities. The other thing I want us to think about as a board and as staff, I'd love some advice, is how we might kind of duplicate what we saw in Egan last week, which is this is what we can bring to the table and what coordination we can do with with other mutual aid partners, and how we can really help either support the coordination. It feels like we need to centralize some of this in communities because what we're able to do as a county is very different than what a local nonprofit or a church might do. But I do think that everybody is trying to come together and help their neighbors, deal with emergencies, and ensure that people who are not able to get access to food, get access to rent, go out to their workplaces and their jobs, support local businesses. There's a lot of moving parts, and it feels like we could maybe be helpful with communication and coordination in some way. So I would like us to think through that. And if you guys have any thoughts of things that are happening in your own communities, I think it would be very helpful. So
Madam
we're
Chair,
still
I think it's
building
wise
this.
to use our power of convening. You're right, we are the largest entity. And if we can bring people together, that would be great. And if we could use our facilities to be able to do that, I'd like to see that happen. And so,
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Holberg.
Yeah, I'm just, once again, we don't have an agenda item with an action item. This is an update. If the board wants to choose to take some kind of action, there's a process for that. I understand the people want feedback on what we think about various things, but I just like to remind us that we're in a manager update and not an agenda item that's been posted.
Thank you. Anything else from the county manager?
Nothing else. Thank you.
Thank you. So we are going to go into GGP, but before we do, every board meeting I like to highlight the work that is done in Dakota County. We serve hundreds of thousands of people every single day in our community. Our employees work incredibly hard to fulfill the mission of Dakota County. And so by the numbers, I want to be sure that we are recognizing some of the important work that's getting done. We're in the middle of winter, and so today I wanted to mention the transportation maintenance teams. These are the folks that get called into work at 1 in the morning. A text goes out to staff, and they'll get an alert that they have to start at 2 in the morning, and staff generally reply within 2 minutes. I'm on my way. And according to their bosses, this is an astronomical level of commitment. So we want to thank them for being so dedicated. Here's some numbers for you. Our transportation maintenance folks on a snowy night will hit the road with 28 tandem drivers, 2 motor grade operators for gravel roads. Yes, we still have lots of gravel roads in Dakota County, Commissioner Slavic, even in my district.
Those are your favorite roads, right?
And 1 tractor for the transit facilities. The crews complete their routes a total of 1,110 lane miles in under 4 hours. I know that to be true because just the other morning I remember waking up and opening up my blinds and going, they've already plowed. So congrats. And the plow drivers do more than just drive. They're operating complicated machinery like augers and spinners to minimize salt applications as they go. And the crews are likely to continue the downward trend of salt use, so they also are looking out for our precious waterways and natural resources. And so thanks for continuing to innovate and think about ways that this work can be done with a minimal impact to our environment. And so today I just want to thank our transportation maintenance team for their hard work and for the thousands of miles that they service to keep our communities safe. So hats off. Mittens on. Anything else for the good of the order? Did I miss anything? Okay. With that, I can entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move approval, Madam Chair.
Second.
Excellent. All those in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, no. We are adjourned. Thank you. GGP starts at